Is your magic meter running low? Well, we've got a cure for you. Welcome to Disney Coast to Coast.
Hey folks, and welcome to Disney Coast to Coast, the ultimate unofficial Disney fan podcast. I'm Jeff DePauli, and on this episode, Sam Carter returns to finish what we started last week by discussing Disneyland's 30th and 35th anniversary TV specials. Since Disneyland will be closed for its 65th anniversary this year, we decided to look back at some of the great anniversaries from the past to help us celebrate Disneyland's 65th this upcoming Friday, July 17th, 2020. All of the 80s and 90s anniversary celebrating is coming your way right after this. Did you know that Disney Coast to Coast can help you get a free audiobook from Audible? It's true, and there are plenty of books to choose from, even some great Disney books. If you haven't yet checked out Bob Iger's book, The Ride of a Lifetime, Lessons Learned from 15 Years as CEO of the Walt Disney Company, I highly suggest it. And guess what? That title is among the many titles available to you for free over at audibletrial.com/DCTC. That's audibletrial.com/DCTC. Head on over there and browse the thousands of titles available and then choose one to enjoy for free. Once again, the site is audibletrial.com/DCTC.
Grab the confetti and celebrate a Disney anniversary.
Alrighty, Sam, we are back and we're here to talk more Disneyland anniversaries.
This is the good stuff.
Yes, so let's just jump into it. We got Disneyland's 30th anniversary celebration. This was on television on February 18th, 1985.
This was a big deal.
This one was long.
Oh, it's like an hour and a half. Yeah, it goes on and on.
Yeah, it was like 2 hours of TV, hour 40 with no commercials.
Oh, wow.
It was very long, so we're not going to hit every beat. We're going to do the highest, because frankly, the one we have to get to after this,
oh my God,
I could talk about forever. So
that could be its own special too, man. That was insane. But yeah, I was surprised with how long it was, because I don't remember it being that long. But there's a lot of jam-packed stuff, and it's kind of like the epitome of that formula, you know, because you've seen the 25th special. It's kind of following that same formula, but man, it's so dated.
Even today, they kind of do it, though, like with their holiday specials. The thing that's so funny to me is, like, you have the Disney parks. It's like good enough, but they're always like, no, we need to cram in as many celebrities, usually singers, as possible. So it just becomes like mini concerts around the parks.
Right, and that's what they still do today. You know, that's the formula that carries on. They threw that all out for the 35th, which is rad, and we'll get to that.
Which I loved so much.
Yeah,
but
and that's why it stands out, I think. And but like more about the 30th, it's just so good. And I don't know if it's because I saw it, you know, that when it aired live, you know, I think I was 7. So a kid growing up down the street from Disneyland, you see this special, it's humongous, right? What's really funny about it is I remember, and that's how I really realized what a special day July 17th was, right? I'm like, okay, that's Disneyland's birthday. This is like a religious kind of holiday for like a big Disney nerd. And what's funny about that is I remember like begging my mom, like, next year we have to go July 17th. And I swear I was expecting Peter Allen to be dancing down the street again. Like, I thought it would be another kind of big thing. I'm like, wait, they didn't do anything.
No, it's just the big anniversaries. But it was bonkers. I want to start by saying, first of all, and this may have been my favorite part of the whole thing, was the opening of the animatronics in the park singing "I'm So Excited." So I
forgot all about that.
Oh my gosh, they took this classic song, "I'm So Excited," and they kind of like took the animatronics' lip movements and timed it so that it seemed like they were.
They had a blast making that. That must have been like tedious, but dude, how fun was that? And I feel like it was like it's straight out of like Everything Is Terrible. Like, you've seen like that. It was made for that. And if they haven't done that, like that's ideal for that.
Well, it's funny because we had stuff from America Sings, which I never witnessed in person. A lot of America Sings.
Oh, really?
Oh, never. I mean, I grew up on the East Coast, so Walt Disney World was my home visit every few years. And then, even Lincoln was singing. I'm so excited. I was like, did you really just have Abraham Lincoln as part of this?
What about the pirate chasing the girl? You know, the whole thing that they say is not PC. And then they even gave it this like creepy laugh of like, when he's chasing the girl, like you really didn't need to add that.
Well, if we want to talk about not PC, do we really want to ignore the fact that John Forsythe, a grown man, is on a date with a young Drew Barrymore, and like they're really pushing this whole it's a date thing, and I'm like, yeah, all right.
I always thought of it as like her grandpa. But yeah, maybe they could have loosened that up a little bit.
Yeah, that was an interesting choice. But the opening alone, and by the way, these specials we're going to be talking about today, easily found on YouTube, so go check them out because they are crazy. This one was, as I mentioned, hosted by Drew Barrymore, who was probably about 10 years old at the time. And
John, straight off of E.T. fame. You know, and I think John was a huge star at the time too.
Well, it's interesting because Drew Barrymore ended up being part of the Epcot special, which at this point would have been 3 years earlier. And John Forsythe, it's so funny because he's just like the theme park guy. And that's kind of how I know him because he did those Universal Studios home videos and MGM opening. And
isn't that funny he did both of those? That seems like such a just give me the paycheck kind of move.
I knew him first from the Universal souvenir tapes because I grew up with those. Years later, I watched the MGM grand opening. I'm like, oh my gosh, they used the same guy. That's crazy to me.
I think that's probably like another middle finger from Eisner.
Quite possibly.
Another jab to Universal. Let's just get him.
Quite possibly. So, they hosted this, although, they were kind of just in and out randomly. But, I don't want to go through every beat of this because there's so much. So let me ask you some of your favorite moments that were in this.
Well, as usual, I like seeing stuff that's not there anymore, right?
Yes.
And right after I'm So Excited, they just show all the limos arriving. It's a good intro to see all these different stars, and it's very 1985, right?
Whom, frankly, I didn't know a lot of, to be completely honest.
You know what? I didn't either, but I know him from this. I do know that one guy's from Hee Haw. So, and then Alabama I've heard of, but I knew Debbie Allen and obviously
Marie Osmond.
Hasselhoff. Yeah, and because I love Knight Rider. So as far as I was concerned as a kid, these are the biggest stars in the world right now, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I like seeing that the old parking lot canopy, which I don't know if it was built for the 30th anniversary, but they had the main gate.
Okay, was that on the parking lot or on Main Street?
If you think where the monorail is in Buena Vista Street and the monorail in front of the Main Street tickets.
Yeah.
There was a whole lead up because it's all parking lot.
Okay.
So now the monorail track that would be now DCA leading up to the center of the Main Street tickets. There's like this welcome walkway that had these shade structures. What's funny about it is when I was as a kid, I would get picked up at the end of that, or I would get dropped off nearby that, right? So it's kind of like one of those kind of like drop-off type kind of spots inside the parking lot. So I just like seeing that and recognizing that because obviously that got ripped out. But that's, to this day, when I hear All Night Long, I think of that scene. And I think it's why I like Lionel Richie, because it reminds me of that. Same with like the Donna Summer stuff. My very first pop song I remember is She Works Hard for the Money. And I think it's because of this, because I remember seeing the music video on MTV. And let's talk about that. The She Works Hard for the Money.
Okay, this was an interesting... So this is Donna Summer, as you said.
Yes.
And they incorporate Snow White and Cinderella into this, which I actually thought was kind of interesting because at first it was Snow White and I was like, Snow White doesn't work hard, but she's kind of like this.
Cinderella's perfect for this.
What was that?
Cinderella's perfect for this.
Cinderella was perfect for it, but it was still weird. And Donna Summer was like in a diner costume, and then
that's from the video.
Oh, that's from the original music.
I think that was part of the gimmick in the video. She's working in a diner, and I think that was pulled from that. That's probably how the song is known too. But what I like about that is they kind of, for Snow White, they used the, Flights of Fantasy floats. There's a Snow White float in those trees. So I'm like, okay, cool. They're using parade floats, which is awesome. But then for Cinderella, for that scene, the stepsisters and the stepmother are all in drag.
Yeah. Awesome. Oh, were they really?
Oh, yes.
Oh, I didn't even recognize that. That's hilarious.
Well, in Electrical Parade in the 80s, the stepsisters were played in drag. So that was kind of like a thing to do at the time.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
That is fascinating.
Right? So that's why they pull kind of the drag for the stepsisters. But then they actually make a set out of the inside of the castle. Like they put a wall
Yes.
up. Well, they kind of make it feel like that is, it's Sleeping Beauty's castle, but it's a castle at Disneyland. So it's kind of cool that they kind of made a set out of the park. I like that.
Yeah, that was a weird sequence. Right before that, though, there was a scene with Drew Barrymore and John Forsythe where they were looking for directions in the park. And do you remember like the quote unquote cast member? But it was like the Micro Machine guy who talks really fast.
Oh yeah,
and I was like, I think it was the Micro Machine guy because I was like, this is such an element of its time. Like for some reason, that Micro Machine guy was like uber famous for being the fast talking guy, and he was like on so many shows doing it. So I thought it was really funny that they just randomly fit him.
No, that was kind of cool, because even to this day, we still know him as that.
Yeah.
But what's really funny is when they show the actual 30th anniversary parade, which is as boring as it gets. It's just these.
Is that the Mardi Gras one? No, that's later.
35th.
That's 35. Sorry.
That's amazing.
Yes.
This one was like, it's just like these tall hexagons going down the street.
Oh yeah.
These balloons, right?
Yeah.
And just characters with like, they call them Barnett banners, I think. But like, here's the thing with that is they're using "Celebrate" as the song. So here's another like iconic Kool and the Gang kind of song. What made me love that is for Block Party Bash, they used that same song. So I kind of wonder if it ties back to like using that song "Celebrate" for park anniversaries. It was a big thing for the 50th.
Yeah.
For Block Party Bash. So I don't know. I like that. But they had Alabama, which is kind of a good representation for the Frontierland kind of stuff.
Yeah, they ended up performing in Golden Horseshoe and on the Mark Twain. Yeah.
Right? Oh, the Mark Twain shot is that's a really cool kind of look. Yeah. I was worried about those sparklers though, and like the Twain. I'm like, don't set this thing on fire.
To me, I'm always just like, whenever I see sparklers on the Mark Twain, like years before Fantasmic, I'm like, it's the precursor to the Fantasmic finale. Here we go.
Oh, definitely. But the best thing was Roy Clark playing with the Country Bear Jamboree. He's from Hee Haw.
Okay, see, I wasn't familiar with him. And okay.
Right. I just knew this guy played the banjo like a madman. And I thought that was perfect. He almost looks like a country bear. You know what I mean? There
were some really interesting music video things going on in this. We had Debbie Allen doing something
She really likes that song.
Is the Zippity Doodah song over in New Orleans Square, which, correct me if I'm wrong, starts over at the Club 33 stairs now, right?
Yeah, that's at the Court of Angels. Yeah. She kind of comes down. But what's weird is she has 3 dance numbers. Like, of course, it's Debbie Allen. She's going to have some, really cool dance scenes.
Yeah.
But each song was to Zippity Doodah.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Because she did the Latina version on Main Street, right?
She did a 3 Caballeros version on Main Street. She did a Tiki Room version.
Okay. So the Tiki Room version I want to talk about for a sec. This was done over by the entrance of the Enchanted Tiki Room, Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room. And there were these giant tikis dancing with her. And I kid you not, in the middle of it, I just thought to myself, I feel like I'm watching like some old school Muppet Show stuff here. Because like, remember those sequences where he'd have like, Jim Henson would have the celebrity doing their number. And there'd always be like, not puppets, but like people in giant costumes dancing around.
Odd.
It felt exactly like a sequence you would see on the Muppet Show.
I could see that. That makes sense. I didn't think of it when I saw that, but that makes perfect sense.
So weird. And then, oh, come on, Hasselhoff's music video over in Tomorrowland Terrace.
That is the best. I'm going to say the second best thing in the special, because there's some good stuff. But the David Hasselhoff, Do You Love Me at TLT, he like Brer Bear is breakdancing on the floor, and they have all like these villains playing these fake instruments behind them. It's awesome.
I'm always intrigued by celebrities that I'm like, how did you get famous? And David Hasselhoff is one of those for me. I'm just like, his level of talent is like mediocre on every level.
Yeah, but don't hassle the Hoff.
I mean, listen, good for him. For somebody to be able to take that level of talent and make an insanely successful career out of it, bravo to you and your team.
Yeah, I mean, Knight Rider, then Baywatch, but I guess it's the Europe stuff that just made him humongous.
Huge in Germany, I think.
I dig him. I grew up loving Knight Rider, so
his singing voice is just not that great. That's what's so funny to me, is that like he has this whole musical career.
Well, what's funny is he has another cameo in this special, not just the TLT one. What do you think about him as the prince?
Oh, the prince with Marie Osmond, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so Marie Osmond is by the castle singing, I think A Dream is a Wish, right?
I think so too, yeah.
Yeah, I think she's singing A Dream is a Wish Your Heart Makes, and he shows up as the prince and dances with her. I'm like, all right, I guess Hasselhoff's a prince in Disneyland now. That's something.
Right, I thought that part was kind of cool. What I really liked is having Julie Andrews be a part of this.
She's like the queen of Disneyland, right? We got Sleeping Beauty, who's the princess, but Julie Andrews is the queen.
For sure. Well, especially because in the 10th anniversary special, Walt says we're never going to have a celebration without Mary Poppins.
Totally.
And so, boom, here's this whole segment. But her talking about the park's anniversary and what the park means, I'm like, fast forward 20 years later, she's like what the official, I don't know what the word would be, but she was the 50th. Like she
was like the ambassador of the 50th anniversary. Okay.
So she narrated the fireworks.
Yes.
So even the way she's talking, it sounds just like that. But, she kind of stopped singing, right? Like, around the 50th. So she didn't really sing much. She sang for this, a really pretty version of When You Wish Upon a Star.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool.
I thought the best part of her was actually the story she told about walking around Disneyland with Walt and just the way huge. That people would come up to him and stuff. And, I've heard those stories, but I don't know. There was something about the way she told it that I'm like, it became finally real to me. Because, let's just think about it. Like Disneyland today, that is just an unbelievable thought, right? Like, obviously he's not around anymore, but at the same time, he was so famous at that time that it's kind of hard to believe that he was just walking around his park and like people could go up to him. Well, that's
why, I've been to all the parks except for Shanghai. And that's besides growing up at Disneyland, it's something that the other parks don't have.
Sure.
Like, when you're here at Disneyland, you feel like, okay, Walt literally wanted that park bench here, and it's still there.
Yeah.
Or, that kind of stuff I really like about our park. Not to say that the other parks aren't awesome. They are, but like that's one thing that the other parks just will never have.
Yeah, exactly. Now, speaking of some of the music video stuff that was crazy, the Pointer Sisters with the electrical parade floats. And
Tron.
I was going to say,
Tron dancers.
So I wrote down, I was like, it looks kind of like Tron. And I wasn't sure if that's what they were going for, if it was just...
Yep.
Okay. So it was like electronica before it existed.
Right. And if you look closely, which believe me, I have, after watching this a billion times, they actually filmed that in front of Small World.
Yes.
That was like the widest spot. So you could kind of see it not lit in the background a couple times.
Which is where they shot that thing in the 25th anniversary.
Yeah, which I thought was kind of cool. But even when I hear that song, this whole special really did a number on me. Every time I hear that song, I think of this.
Wow. How old were you at the time? You would have been like, you're 7? Okay. Yeah. That's 7 or 8. It's an impressionable age. So
I thought so.
Yeah. This was my first time watching this. So this was all
no
new
way.
to me. Yeah.
Well, this, I think, and I've talked to a few people about this special, like folks my age who are really into the parks. This special had a lot to do with it.
Okay.
And you kind of, when you're at that age and you're kind of just thinking this place is already amazing, but then you see this, and then every once in a while you'll watch it. Like, every July 17th, I'll probably share something from this on Twitter. But there's just so many gems in this thing too. But the Peter Allen finale.
The finale's crazy. The finale has about, I'm not even exaggerating, I'd probably say about 7 or 8 finales in and of itself. You're
sure.
that's the end. Nope, there's more. And it's kind of too much, to be honest.
It's like a 15-minute finale. But it's just so cool that before we go to the finale, this kind of reminds me of it too. Speaking of Marie Osmond, she did a number on Main Street called Walking Down the Middle of Main Street.
Which they perform as the part of the trolley show at Magic Kingdom, and I wish we had it as a daily thing at Disneyland, but that's the whole, I'm walking right down the middle of Main Street, USA. I love it.
I think, I could be wrong, but I think that was made for the special, or if it was like an in-park thing going on at the time at Disneyland. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But, I've been uploading a lot of like my videos I've been finding during quarantine. Got to find something to do. So I've been digitizing like all this stuff. And I found this one parade that we did. It was a cavalcade called Mickey's Magic Kingdom Celebration. That was it ran the few months leading up to the 50th. And they used that song in that cavalcade.
Cool.
So yeah, they still use that song every once in a while. It's a good one.
I love that song. And they mixed it with like I Love a Piano, which is I Love a Piano.
Right.
Da, 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 da.
Where's that from?
That's like a standard. I don't know. It could be like an old Cole Porter sort of thing, but I'm not 100% sure.
That whole scene was pretty awesome, how they filmed it all over Main Street.
Yeah, I thought that was fun. And then, of course, the finale was on Main Street as well. And, it was... You know what I loved about it? There were marching bands all over the parks that they shot, like all different areas.
But the main one, did you see what the main one was?
Was it USC or?
It was, which is kind of funny, full circle for me, because I quit Disney to go be the creative director at USC, and I did a lot of work with the Spirit of Troy.
That's
and
funny.
for like Dr. Art Bartner, because he just celebrated his 50th year teaching, and I got to like ask him about this. I'm like, hey, one of my favorite specials was that 30th anniversary, and he remembered all of it. He was
wow,
like, that was epic. I don't want to sell him out, but he did say Peter Allen was pretty much like a total diva.
I believe it. That's so
that
fun.
outfit is so out of control. What he's wearing, and he's kind of marching down Main Street. I've always wanted to recreate that costume and wear it to like some Halloween party at Disneyland.
See who
And
notices.
I don't care if one person recognizes who I am. Like, I just want someone to videotape me walking like that with this huge high steps down Main Street. It's a bucket list thing for me to do.
I want to be there with you when you do it. That's great. What was with the runners with the torches like it was the Olympics?
Well, 84 Olympics, the year before was in LA. I think it was a spoof off the Olympics to do candles.
Okay.
And they were running all over the park for that. Because then Mickey comes out on that giant float with the cake with that terrible cheesecake joke. Like, who wrote that? But like, then it turns into sparklers, and it's a really long scene at the end. But that float was pretty neat.
You know what I noticed during the sequence was the giant trees in front of Sleeping Beauty Castle.
Oh, yeah.
That from what I hear, and I don't know if this is rumor or what, but I believe at least one of those trees is now in Tony Baxter's yard. I heard when they removed them from Disneyland, he like put one in his yard and has the lights.
That would not surprise me.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I don't know whether or not that's true. But yeah, it was crazy. One of the things in this special, though, of course, always looking back, is character costumes. I always find really fascinating how they change through the ages. Dumbo, no matter when they make a Dumbo costume, it's often very different, but always so cute. And this
I thought you were going to say super strange.
No, I love them. I love the Dumbo costumes.
They used, I think they had, because it was all from like the Flights of Fantasy Parade, which they built for the opening of Fantasyland, I think in 83. So they're still pretty new at the time, right? Because it was 85. But for that, they even had a costume character of the ringmaster from Dumbo. Did you see that guy with?
Oh, I don't remember seeing that. No, that's fun.
So that's a rare character that you never have. But I think the Dumbo character actually had arms controlling the ears. It was really floppy.
Okay.
For that version of it. But he's had like 10 different ones.
There was also, we got the Mad Hatter as like a full-on fuzzy costume, not a face character. So that's much different than what we're used to seeing for the past quite a few years.
Treated like one of the dwarfs, it's like where the head is down low, one of those ones. Yeah, I think they got rid of that right after the special, made it a face part. So I'm trying to figure out why the Queen of Hearts isn't a face character. That's still a head character, but they were wise enough to switch out the Mad Hatter to be face part just for interaction's sake.
Probably because it's a large person, so it's probably a man in there. That's probably why it's that's part, and they don't want to do the drag thing again. So.
The more drag, the better.
And then, it was funny because on the last episode you talked about how Goofy hasn't changed that much through the years, but there was some footage of Goofy in this where it was like no padding on the body. It was, I think this was like they were showing some old footage within this special, and it was like just a really tall person with a giant head, and I was like, ooh, that's an odd looking.
So the proportions are a little off, so you didn't have like the curviness to it. Well, what I did notice about most of the characters is some of them had like springs in their eyelids and really big fake eyelashes.
Yeah.
So when they move around, they kind of just flitter around.
Yeah.
I noticed that they were using those, but I think maybe late 80s they kind of ripped off the fake eyelashes and just ditched the springs there. So that's one thing that's a little different.
I like the springs personally. I think they're fun.
Yeah, it works. That's their early articulated head. Just put some springs in there.
Also, the cards from Alice in Wonderland. I'd never seen those as characters in the park.
That's from the same parade, yeah.
Wow, okay. So I missed a lot missing that parade, apparently.
Well, you know what? I just uploaded that one on... maybe I haven't uploaded yet, but I have it. It's from 1983. And I think it's the one where my uncle videotaped it. And I'm a 6-year-old kid sitting across the street. So like the parade's going by, but I'm watching the parade.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been watching parades for a long time.
Yeah.
And eventually driving floats for them. So that's why I kind of know too much about this stuff. But yeah, so you'll see all these really cool floats.
That's awesome. Now, this was on NBC, and because of that, we got a lot of NBC sitcom stars in this. We got the Cosby Kids.
What do you think of that swag? They're all wearing Cosby Show shirts, sweatshirts, and hats.
Well, let's face it,
we get it.
Let's face it, the Cosby Show was like the biggest thing ever at the time.
But they couldn't get Bill, which maybe is probably a good thing.
Of course they couldn't get Bill. He was busy. He was in Club 33 doing something. Just leaving that there. And we had got like the cast of, or a couple people from the Facts of Life. And one thing that I found interesting about this was they're talking to a Plaid, a tour guide, and they ask him a question, and he goes, "I'm sorry, I'm on break." And I'm like, whoa, that would never be written into a script in the parks today, right? Like, if you're on stage, you're never on break, sort of.
Especially a plaid.
Especially. So I thought that was kind of funny. We got some characters from Night Court and somebody from Family Ties. They did a magic trick that was...
Right, Tina Yoder's. What's funny about that is that's kind of like foreshadowing Harry Anderson's special for the kickoff of the 90s.
Well, he was part of the Disney MGM grand opening celebration.
Oh, okay. So he was in their back pocket.
Yeah.
Which is funny about that special is they use the Back to the Future music when they're talking about all the 90s stuff that's coming.
Oh, that's
really
funny.
Weird.
That is
what
funny.
Going on?
Yeah, so, this was stars. Oh, Annette Funicello was in this, and one of the cool things that they mentioned, by the way, I just love her speaking voice. Not a great singing voice, but she had such a great speaking voice. I should look into how much voiceover she did, because it was just such a pleasant and unique speaking voice.
She was a real ambassador to Walt.
Yeah.
Really similar to Julie Andrews in that way. So if you're going to have a special that celebrates the park, you have to have Annette.
Yeah.
You have to have Julie Andrews. So that's kind of nice that they had her for this.
Yeah, and she was there talking about how this was also the 30th anniversary of the Mickey Mouse Club, not only Disneyland, but also the Mickey Mouse Club, which was pretty cool to hear and celebrate.
That's kind of neat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, listen, this is, like I said, this one is, 2 hours on television sort of thing. It's long, so go find it on YouTube, Disneyland's 30th anniversary celebration. But do you want to say anything else about this before we hop to the 35th?
Well, I do. I mentioned that I was kind of looking through the credits of the last one for the 25th special, and I didn't obviously see anyone I know. But I took another look at the credits for this one, and I knew a lot of those folks, and some of those folks are still working there.
Wow.
And I think you might find this interesting. So Barnett Richie.
Oh, director of Fantasmic. Disney legend. Yeah.
Yeah, Disney legend, Barnett Richie, actually did this one. I think she directed this special.
Oh, wow.
So I saw her name on there. And what's really funny is, too, one of my old managers who actually just retired, Pat Dennis, is on there. Craig Smith is he's on there, too. I forget what his role was. But, I'm seeing these names, and I'm like, these folks are still working at Disneyland. They're so cool.
It's crazy.
They've been really influential of my whole career, especially working with the Disney company and just elsewhere. And I can't help but keep in touch with them. And I'm seeing these names pop up. It's so awesome that they give them that kind of credit, which we'll mention for the 35th special. They did not. They just said, thanks to all Disneyland cast members. We're like, oh, they got the shaft on the 35th.
It's funny looking at old credits because I'll look at stuff that, in the voiceover world, I'll look at TV holiday specials and stuff that I grew up with and look at the credits now and be like, oh my gosh, these are all people still in the voiceover industry and people that I've met and stuff like that. And it is crazy. I mean, because it feels like, it was a lifetime away for us, right? We're 5 years old or whatever. And these people were, at the beginnings of their careers. So,
well, what's neat about it too is seeing the names on there, and I still talk to them. I'll ask them questions all the time. I'm like, hey, so what was this like? Or what was that like? They're like, oh man, that was the middle of the night. Or they'll be kind of talking about the backstory to it, everything. And I'm like, wow. Well, all that hard work paid off. All that stress paid off because kids like me ate it up. You know what I mean? Yes. So no, that was it. It's one of my favorites. And I think all the music on there is worth listening to. It's not even worth fast forwarding through. I think all the music acts are pretty good, especially Julian Lennon. Hello. John Lennon's son's there.
Yeah. He played a lot over on the Rivers of America on the barge.
Right.
And
so
stuff.
he was on that barge, which reminded me of when Fantasmic first opened. They had the pre-show, the jazz band, kind of floating there to entertain, and it always reminded me of that Julian Lennon scene of him playing on that too. Kind of cool.
That was wild. So that was a fun one, the Disneyland 30th, but let's get to Disneyland's 35th anniversary celebration, which aired on television on February 4th of 1990. And this one was the complete opposite direction of any of the others we've talked about. I loved this one because this one really celebrated the park. It wasn't so much about what celebrities can we get to perform in the park. This was about let's celebrate the park, but it starts in a very weird fashion. It starts once again, it's on NBC, so we're going to promote their sitcoms. So it starts in the Cheers bar with the cast of Cheers, which of course includes John Ratzenberger, who has become the voice of, every Pixar movie at this point. But, it starts in Cheers, and I actually was like, did the person, do I need to fast forward a bit? I wasn't even sure until the character of Woody, ironically, Woody Ratzenberger, Woody Cheers.
I didn't put that together.
He comes out and he's talking about I loved this. He was talking about how he went to Disneyland and, it was a special day for him because there were balloons and there were fireworks. And then they're like, yeah, it's like that every day. He's like, what? I wasn't there opening day? And they're like, no, you weren't even
You wouldn't be old
born."
enough.
Yeah. So it was funny, and it kind of like led into the parks that way because that character of Woody starts talking about his experience on the Haunted Mansion. And then
I like this scene. I thought this was well done.
It was interesting because it's a flashback, so they've got a younger actor portraying Woody, and I thought
he was good, and then he met that girl on the ride, and he was all into her, and that's what's kind of neat. Don't you think all these specials hint to teenagers going to Disneyland to like meet someone
and
or,
make
like,
out,
flirt?
And
like a makeout ride, People Mover, Haunted Mansion.
That's what was so funny was like they basically said, yeah, the Haunted Mansion's the makeout ride. Like you go, like they basically just flat out said that in the special, which I thought was funny. But we've got to talk about the butler that we find in the Haunted Mansion.
The first of many scenes from Mr. Charles Fletcher.
Charles Fleischer, who is the voice of Roger Rabbit, is... Yes. A big part of this special. So this is 2 years after Roger Rabbit. So he's part of the Disney family at this point and, but not famous, but a huge part of this special.
He was stoked to have this be kind of like a big thing for him. And, I saw Charles Fletcher. Is it Fleischer?
I think it's Fleischer.
Yeah, I think so too. I saw him at one of like WonderCon or something, and he was just kind of signing autographs and no one was visiting him. I'm like, oh, bummer. So I obviously I wanted to see him because of Roger Rabbit, and I bought a signature, and I have it. I actually want to hang it up, but I wanted to ask him. I'm like, hey man, the 35th anniversary special was amazing, and I told him that I literally laughed at his Jungle Book skipper, like his Coconut Charlie was his character.
Dude, too funny.
He could get his own series of him as that character, but like. We talked recently about the guns on the Jungle Cruise and how you don't shoot at the hippos anymore, you shoot up.
Oh, he certainly did.
He shot at the crowd. Like he turned around and was shooting at Tony Danza with a boa constrictor around him.
Yes.
But that scene, I think there's a really funny animated GIF. There's so many GIFs, and they're all coming from these specials. But there's a GIF of everyone jumping off the Jungle Cruise boat that always makes me laugh.
Yes.
Because it's like, you never see that.
Yeah, we'll get to the Jungle Cruise and talk all about that. It was crazy. In the Haunted Mansion, though, we got to see him as a living knight, which, of course, in the early days of the Haunted Mansion,
right? They used to have one.
They always talk about the actor that used to jump out. Well, he's in a costume in there. We get to see the old bride animatronic, which I don't know if I'd ever witnessed in person. And then, of course, we've got Michael Eisner there, of course, for a celebration in the parks. But we also get Ronald Reagan, who had already been president of the country at this point. So, like, that's amazing. A pretty big deal to get him in the park. And, of course, his history with Disneyland is amazing because he was one of the presenters on the opening day celebration.
Right, him and Art Linkletter. Like, and they kind of show scenes from them, and that's pretty amazing. They show Ronald Reagan in Town Square doing, like, the 1955 bits. But then all of a sudden he's back, and he has that reflective sparklets water kind of like styled design in the back, which I love. But I thought that was kind of like a big deal that they got him. I can only imagine the Secret Service and the security involved in that thing. But, they showed Art Linkletter doing his bits, and it's just really cool that they tied it back. I wish they had Art Linkletter for this, which they didn't. But they did get Art for the 50th, which is cool.
And, what was a big part of this was the Mardi Gras parade footage, which you were talking about this parade. This was a wild parade. I talked about this actually on our on our Easter episode this season because it was part of that whole Easter TV special as well. But why was there a Mardi Gras themed parade? Like, was there a reasoning behind this other than, that could be fun?
Well, the whole parade, it was called Party Gras. And it was just like, it had Buster Poindexter did the music for Hot, Hot, Hot. And it just seemed like they were having a party. And so they picked that theme, maybe because it tied to New Orleans Square a little bit. But,
okay.
They just pick a different theme for every kind of celebration. And this one was more than like Mardi Gras itself. The theme was just these humongous balloons of the characters, confetti, beads. So Party Gras was a typical Disney pun on something. So it felt right. It felt appropriate for the time. I never thought it was odd that it was like a Mardi Gras year-round kind of thing. But that scene was neat. When they showed the Party Gras parade, they were kind of mixing it up with all the different old footage.
Yes.
From like all these different, like they would show, it was kind of, didn't really go together, but they would show like these dignitaries and celebrities from like the 50s, 60s, 70s at Disneyland. But then they would kind of like spice it up with like conga line in the party Gras. You're like, oh, it doesn't really go together, but whatever, it's fine. But it was like the montage to get all that stuff that they had to show. Like, oh, got to show walking through this. So that was the time they did this one.
Yeah. So it was cool. We also get Michael Eisner once again with the first 2 visitors ever to visit Disneyland. Of course, they were a little boy and girl at the time, and we see them as adults in this special 30 years or 35 years later, which is pretty cool.
They've been pulled out a few times, but I think this was the first time that they did that. They brought them out and kind of said them by name, and yeah, they're older. They're around still. I don't know if they're still around, but that's kind of neat.
I mean, that's a pretty cool thing to say you were, right? The first guests into Disneyland. That's awesome. Now, at this point, we're kind of introduced to our host for the special. Now we're like, how far into this special? And we're finally introduced to our host. I mean, we just talked about a lot of stuff. All of this happened before our host, Tony Danza, was introduced, which is...
Who's not even an NBC star. Wasn't he Channel 7?
Who's the boss?
ABC.
Who's the boss? I don't know what network
I think it was ABC, which is just ironic because they kind of plug all the NBC shows.
Yeah.
But he was an okay host. I mean, he was kind of goofy. He's doing his normal bit. But yeah, when Michael Eisner, which is great that Michael Eisner's in this, I think.
Yeah.
He gets to introduce Tony, and he's waiting in line for the Jungle Cruise. Just kind of cool.
Yeah, and so now this is when that whole Jungle Cruise sequence you were talking about with Fleischer in there. He was
one of the best parts, for sure.
This is wild, man. No pun intended. But so Fleischer is performing as the skipper, and Tony Danza is, a guest on the cruise. I'm making none of this up. This is what happens. A guest jumps off the boat and is eaten by an alligator, which of course these days would never happen in a Disney special, considering some history.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yikes.
Yeah. There's a cobra that gets onto the boat, right?
Mm-hmm. And then I like when they go by the elephants and like they pretend like you're going to get blasted. But they actually did like a fire hose on everyone, like they're just drenched.
Yeah, not only that, but also Schweitzer Falls, they don't make the turn fast enough. They get soaked. I was honestly watching this being like, I kind of want this to be the summer version on those hot days.
Oh, gosh,
I want this to
so
be
nasty.
You probably, that'd be gross. But the summer version of Jungle Cruise where you just get soaked. I was like, this would be kind of epic. So we've got shooting at the hippos, shooting at the guests, real spears when, that moment when the natives have their spears, and usually the skipper will be like by the microphone. No.
Right.
And everybody jumps off the boat. Like, it was wild.
It's for the most part, all like the routine and the lines that he's saying, they're from the ride, right? They're all kind of like the same kind of
the banter,
famous lines.
Yeah.
But there's one line he says at the end, and I think of it every time I'm on the Jungle Cruise, and I wish they would still say it. And I don't know why they don't, or if they just did it for the special. But Coconut Charlie, our guide, says, now it's time for the most dangerous part of the tour, return to civilization and the California freeways. Like, his delivery on that is so funny. And it's like, these anniversary specials are like embedded in my brain. And when I'm at the park, I'm hearing them. I'm hearing like these quotes, and I would say it out loud, but no one knows so I just say it to myself, and I'm like, you know what? All that matters is I love it.
Well, if you ever get to be a skipper for a day, you can add that joke back in. Now we get to a moment that, frankly, I never expected to happen. And that is, we have C-3PO and R2-D2 in Star Tours having a conversation about the Muppets. This is amazing.
It's another tie-in, because there's so many Muppets and Star Wars things, right? But did you love who Tony Danza walks in with? The three little pigs.
Oh, the three little pigs. Yeah.
They want to meet Miss Piggy.
Yeah.
It's just funny, right? This is a stupid bit. Those costumes are horrendous, but it's whatever. But yeah, he's walking in the Star Tours. They're asking C-3PO, and Anthony Daniels actually recorded new lines for this, which is kind of neat, right? But this is a really neat kind of like intro to the Muppets. The bit they did with Miss Piggy and Gonzo is really funny.
And this was probably, now 1990, this would have been a time when they were already at Disney MGM Studios.
Right.
But this was probably the first time they were used at Disneyland Resort, is my guess.
I think that's a good guess. What's interesting, too, is I think that's right. So this was a time when they were planning to do a potential Muppet takeover.
Yes, I remember that.
After the 35th.
Yeah.
And the whole gimmick was, well, Mickey and Minnie and the Fab Five and everyone, they're exhausted. They're taking a year off, and the Muppets are running the joint. So kind of like how they did Pixar Fest recently. This would be Muppet Fest. And this is where they were going to take out Mr. Lincoln, and that's where Muppet Vision was going to go.
Yep.
They were going to paint the Matterhorn green, which is like a horrendous idea. But like they're going to switch out some of the small world figures to be Muppets. Miss Piggy was going to be like lying in one of the scenes. This was probably when that was still in the works.
I honestly, as like bad an idea as that sounds, and as angry as I would be if I were a tourist, and I was only at Disneyland for a week, I still kind of want to see it. Like,
well, they would, I don't know if you knew, but they were going to switch out the Mickey floral in front of the train station and be a Kermit face, things that you would never.
Yeah, like sacrilegious things. Yeah,
right. So I know I wish, because it wasn't going to be permanent, but I think the park could have used it for a year, and it's a fun spoof.
I just had a horrible visual when you were talking about replacing like Mickey Floral with Kermit and how sacrilegious that is. I just like in my mind, I just visualized Homer Simpson.
Oh,
as like
I kind of want that too.
No, I do not want that at all.
That's different. Kermit's
but I was
different.
like, oh no. Oh gosh.
Maybe for an episode of The Simpsons, not at the real park.
Yeah. Oh gosh. No. So, but in any case, we get this amazing sequence with Gonzo and Miss Piggy, where Miss Piggy wants to be Cinderella. She sees her, riding down the street in a carriage.
Mm-hmm. And well, did you notice though when they're like, they kind of act like it's backstage, like the parade hasn't started yet, but they're on Main Street and they have all the characters kind of just hanging out, waiting to get on. But they're in front of Egg House Gate, which is where the parade steps off.
Yeah.
Not backstage, which I thought was interesting.
I love the fact that Gonzo is, instead of the fairy godmother, he's the fairy god thing. I thought that was great. We also see...
Anytime Gonzo uses that gag with his eyes, when they kind of like, huh? You know what I mean? Like, is everyone getting the gist of this? Like, he does that stupid thing. Like, and you have like the actual voices. I think they still do it, but it's probably a little bit rarer. But like those are real Muppet voices. Those are real Muppet shtick.
Well, that was
the funniest part.
That was Frank Oz and Dave Goelz for sure performing them. Yeah.
Oh, they're so good.
Dave Goelz still to this day doing Gonzo. Unbelievable.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Because we're kind of used to some Muppets that don't really sound as good as we remember them, but like this is the real deal. So I liked having that there. But they did the same gag with Cinderella, where they made the inside of the castle in the same exact spot. They made it Cinderella's house.
Yeah.
Same thing they did in the 30th, which I thought was neat. No drag in this one, but at least there were Muppets.
No drag.
But what's funny too is this is another thing where they kind of mention like all the flirting that goes on at the park. Like you're going to go to Disneyland and you're going to meet a girl, you're going to meet a guy, you're going to go ride the People Mover with them, right? Gonzo was all over Cinderella in this one at the end.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So tell me, is this Prince thing? Is this serious? I don't know. I thought it was funny.
We also get Charles Fleischer as part of this as a balloon seller, and
I love it.
So they fit him in there. It was just so good. Like that was the most unexpected.
Hey, who wants
thing.
A balloon? Kind of pushy, kind of like everything that Walt didn't want. But it's kind of like, hey, it's selling balloons. Who wants a balloon here?
Too crazy. So that was wild. The Muppet segment alone is worth watching this, I would say. Then we get Tony Danza, our host, over by Disneyland's newest attraction, Splash Mountain. Oh, touchy subject these days.
Moment of silence. But it's funny because you do have Ernest.
Okay. This is amazing. Ernest P.
And you have,
Worrell.
what's neat, because this is around the same time that they did the Ernest Goes to Splash Mountain special. I'm even curious if they filmed this at the same time. So that ran summer '89. I'm curious if they filmed this segment at the same time, or they like, hey, get them back here, and because they did more stuff. But the Ernest stuff was on set somewhere. The only thing in the park, well, Ernest played his grandpa in the park, it's funny. And they had like a young kid play young Ernest.
A young kid who honestly I would believe was a young Jim Varney. Very good casting.
I'm surprised they didn't do like have a series with that kid doing something too, because he was really believable. I wonder if he did more stuff with Ernest, because he was perfect.
There is in one of the movies, I don't know, it's probably either the Christmas one or the Halloween one, because those are really the only two I've seen a bunch. I think it's the Halloween one, where we see him as a kid, but it's only the back of his head, and he's in school writing something on a chalkboard, and like the teacher whacks the back of his head. I don't know.
That's cool.
But
I thought that the great. You see attractions that aren't there anymore. They're fishing on the motorboat cruise. I thought that was kind of cool.
They got through a ton of attractions on this. We got Autopia, the boats, as you mentioned, the Skyway, the Matterhorn, Small World, the teacups. Like, they got all over the park with, Ernest as a young child and his grandfather. And
Jim Varney's so cool. Like
Jim Varney, of course, the voice of Slinky Dog, the original Slinky Dog for Toy Story. So I've heard this story about, I forget the specifics, but Michael Eisner was watching a parade, and it was like for the city of Anaheim or something like that. Maybe it was in Florida. And like some Disney characters were going down the street. And then following them was Ernest in a car, and like the crowd went wild. And Michael Eisner was like, "Who is that?" And somebody was like, "That's Ernest." And like, he needs to be Disney, and that's how he became part of Disney.
Was he Touchstone? The Ernest films were Touchstone?
Some of them ended up being associated with Disney. I mean, Ernest Saves Christmas. I mean, his house was at Disney MGM Studios.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, on Residential Street, they shot the
so awesome.
Christmas movie there. Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like the Micro Machine guy. You know what I mean? It's like this. I think Ernest got his first kind of shot. I remember from commercials on Cerritos Auto Square.
He did commercials for everything. Everything.
Yeah. So like that's how I first saw him, just a TV guy, almost like a Cal Worthington. I don't know if you have that, but like these local celebrities, and then some of them blow up.
Yeah, Ernest was interesting. It was kind of like Ernest and Pee Wee Herman were the two, those two like what's the
they end up getting kid shows.
Yeah, the alternate personalities of these actors, and they're they just became huge, and it was really fun. So like Ernest was in this and the Muppets. I'm like, this special. I'm all about it.
It's loaded.
Yeah, so this was loaded with like
a good special,
random crazy characters as opposed to musical singing groups, which I'm all for. But speaking of random musical singing groups, of course we get DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince in front of Sleeping Beauty Castle singing Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious in a very unique way. It's not uncommon for Disney to take some of their classic songs and modernize them, I would say. But Supercala does not work in this fashion.
No, you know what? It's funny. This kind of got a lot of play when they announced Will Smith was doing the Genie in Aladdin. And they're kind of like, then the people started looking at this old clip, and I don't know if people knew where it's from. It's from the special. It never seemed too off for me. I kind of liked it. I liked Will Smith. I liked the Fresh Prince. And it's definitely the era. Like, it's kind of it looks like there's some Fly Girls behind them from In Living Color.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like that hip hop era. I'm a big Mary Poppins fan, so I was glad that they kind of did something with it. And maybe,
because as Walt said, every special from now on is going to have
this counts for that one, I guess.
The weirdest part, though, is that Mickey Mouse appears in this as an animated character, not the park character, which I thought was very strange.
Yeah, there was a couple specials around this time when they did that. There was like the Videopolis one where they had animated Mickey do the same thing. I think maybe because they're just on the heels of Roger Rabbit, they're like, yeah, we could do this. Let's kind of just mix it up a little bit.
Yeah,
it works for it. It's fine. But when kind of like side note with the new Mary Poppins that came out, and you had Lin-Manuel do a lot of that kind of stuff. I don't want to say it's hip hop, but there's kind of like that kind of those kind of lyrics in some of Mary Poppins. That he makes it feel more appropriate for hip hop. Like there's like that one scene, and I forget what number it is, but there's a song in Mary Poppins Returns that has hip hop, and they're like, oh, why that would never be in Mary Poppins. So like, well, I would say Dick Van Dyke did some of that, especially in the Jolly Holiday when he's naming all the girls' names. That kind of like made it work for me.
Here's where it really comes down to for me. I'm just not a Will Smith fan. So
there you go.
I didn't love seeing that, but I don't know. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. I was like, no.
But if anyone was going to do a hip hop version of that, I think he might be the only one to get away with it. Like you're not going to have Eminem or someone hard do it.
Eminem. I don't think Eminem will ever perform in Disneyland.
You're probably right, but you're not going to get someone who's tough to do that. I think this one kind of worked because he was so like just like friendly guy.
Yeah, and that was kind of the finale of this special before we headed back to the Cheers bar, which by the way, fun fact, I lived about 2 blocks away from the Cheers bar for 4 years when I was in college. I used to walk by that.
In Boston, or you mean like the set?
The real one in Boston. No, the
that's
real
cool.
One. Yeah.
I heard inside it looks nothing like it.
Nothing like it. It's very, very small and tiny in the basement, and yeah, but it's cool to walk by there all the time and see it. And, I remember like putting on Nick at Night when I was in college and Cheers would start and I'd be like, it's literally right there.
Oh, that's pretty awesome.
It's just kind of weird. But But yeah, they bookended it by returning to the bar, and they were all watching the special in the bar. And that was the special. I mean, listen, we've talked about 4 specials now. We've talked about the 10th anniversary, the 25th, the 30th, and the 35th. And we're doing this to celebrate Disneyland's 65th. So if somebody's at home, quarantined, stuck inside with nothing to do, and is going to check out one of these 4 specials to celebrate Disneyland's 65th anniversary, which one do you send them to? Ooh, tough question.
I would hope if you're a big enough Disney nerd, you've already seen the 10th special, right? I'm hoping. That might be like required reading.
The thing about the 10th is you probably, even if you haven't seen the special, you've seen a lot of the footage from it, is my guess.
25th is probably like the weirdest. That's kind of like not really as enjoyable. It's just weird.
Thank you, Danny K, for that.
It's so bizarre, yeah. But if you were a child of the 80s, I think you have to do the 30th. If you're a child of the 90s, definitely the 35th.
I'm going to go with the 35th all the way. The 35th
it's probably the most fun.
It's
the most funny. And
the 30th felt drawn out to me. It felt long watching the 30th.
And it was. Oh my God, it was super long. And you know what? The one thing that the 35th didn't try to do is be sappy. They like overloaded you with the sappiness for like the other one, for the 25th and the 30th. Sap Central.
Yeah, no.
The 35th was just fun.
The 30th was kind of, it was a party, a huge party. And the 35th, the thing I like about the 35th, aside from like these crazy random characters showing up, is it really celebrated the park. It was more about celebrating the park than it was about celebrity guests. And I liked that.
And then you had, I think Charles Fleischer really just kind of sold the whole special. I think he was really like probably one of the main reasons why I love this one.
It was wild for sure. And before we get on to some trivia here, do you remember the 60th TV special? I'm sure you do. It was just 5 years ago. But that was so weird because it was like an awards ceremony.
I don't remember seeing that. I think I need to go look it up. Yeah, I must have missed it. And when I was watching these videos, I saw some other videos that I didn't click on yet. But there's something for the 40th. Well, I did see a little bit of it. And it just seemed like an infomercial for Indiana Jones. Like it wasn't like a TV special. But I'm going to go back and watch the 60th. I didn't see that one, but I'm curious. But what's funny about all of these is when I was working at Disneyland and we were getting ready to open California Adventure. So working at California Adventure, opening the park back then, 2001, I remember thinking that, I'm sure they're going to do a special done in the same style of like the 30th or the 35th. I was hoping that there'd be some kind of, and they did do like a special that it wasn't a variety show. It was kind of just a lot of like comedy routines and bits, like Whose Line Is It Anyway kind of guys. But I love that formula where you have a music artist that fits the theme of the land that it's in, and they're playing a song that everybody knows. Like I would have done like Tom Petty at Soarin' playing, Learning to Fly, or like or Beach Boys or at Paradise Pier doing their thing.
Sure.
I thought that they would do something like that, but they didn't. But what's fun about the 35th specials, I was looking at the credits, and the first name you see, it was John Landis.
John Landis, like, American Werewolf in London, Thriller, that director was like the main director for the 35th anniversary special. That is wild to me.
John Landis. That's a big deal for this.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect it to be John Landis. Like, I was in
That's
shock.
A surprise.
And I was like, oh, it must be a different guy with the same name. No, I check IMDb. It's John Landis. It's Thriller, John Landis. I was like, that's an odd
Blues
choice.
Brothers, John Landis.
Yeah, Blues Brothers.
That's crazy.
It's a very odd, random choice. But hey, that's who we got to direct this. And I'm all for it. He did a great job on this one, I would say.
Well, it's funny is I ran into him at Comic-Con one year. I wish I realized he worked on this because I would have
You would have picked his brain and he would have been like, oh my God, what? Like,
I might be the only person in the world to say like, hey, great job. He's thinking I'm going to say Blues Brothers or American Werewolf in London. No, the Disneyland 35th anniversary special.
Totally.
He's going to be like, are you serious? He's like, are you punking me?
That's amazing. Anyway, these were fun. It's always fun to look back at these. If you're a Disney Parks fan, I highly suggest it. We're so lucky to live in an age of YouTube where a lot of the stuff is just easily available and easy to find, because you will learn a lot of parks history here just watching these things and have a lot of good laughs along the way. But anything you want to add before we get some trivia?
No, thanks for having me, take a look back at these. I forgot how much I loved them.
Alrighty then, let's get some trivia.
Do you know the answer? Get your brain gears churning and play along. It's trivia time.
Alrighty, do you want to hit me with a trivia question first, or shall I hit you?
I'm going to hit you first this time.
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay. How much do you love churros at Disneyland? How's your churro knowledge?
1 out of 10.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a must churro kind of guy.
Oh, I'm
my
not.
churro, my Coke Zero, I'm set.
I'll have a churro when they're free, which is, a few times a year. There'll be some special event where it's like, hey,
yeah, but those are the stale ones. But okay, so do you know where the churro came from as far as Disneyland history goes?
Oh,
How far back it goes?
I've heard this before. Now I'm completely blanking. What are you looking for? A year when it was introduced?
Well, a year and location in the park. Where did it premiere?
Okay, I'm gonna guess it premiered in Frontierland. No. I know the answer. It was Videopolis.
Yes.
At a place called, because you want to know why I know this? Because I just went to 80s night in January, and they recreated this little snack stand. Yums, right.
YUMZ.
Yes, so they made the snack stand Yums, and they were selling churros there. The year would have been, gosh, when did Videopolis come along? Late 80s. 88?
86.
86?
I'm going to say 86, I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of fun fact. Because I can't imagine the parks not having churros, and it's just even weirder to think it just started at Videopolis.
Churros are newer than passports, yet older than the partner statue. There we go.
Yes, it is. That's funny.
That's crazy.
Some of them taste like it.
Yeah. So we were talking about my trivia for you. We were talking about Charles Fleischer, who played all those different roles in the 35th anniversary special, and I mentioned how he is the voice of Roger Rabbit, but he is also several other voices in that film. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Do you know any of the other characters whose voice he performed?
Benny the Cab.
Benny the Cab is one. The other two, I gotta be honest, I don't even know these characters by name, so...
Are they, they're not main characters? Are they really the kind of like background kind of guys?
They might have been some sidekicks that I just don't know by name.
I feel that it might be one of the Bullets.
Oh, maybe. The names are Greasy and Psycho. I was thinking maybe some of the Weasels.
Those are Weasels.
Okay. Yeah.
Those are Weasels.
Yeah, so it looks like he best known for performing the voices of Roger Rabbit, Benny the Cab, Greasy, and Psycho in Disney Touchstone's 1988 film Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Speaking of him, did you see the...
Prop culture?
Yes.
Yeah.
With Roger Rabbit.
Yeah, he seems crazy.
He's out there. Like, he's really Roger Rabbit. Like, he is just bananas.
He's wild. We did a whole episode on prop culture, and that was an interesting episode. That was one of the better ones. I loved seeing Christopher Lloyd. Yeah.
Oh,
well, from what I hear, he's been replaced as Roger Rabbit because he's not the easiest to work with. I've heard that he's...
But when do they ever use him now?
These days, I don't know, but maybe parades and stuff, but they did quite a few shorts after the film. And from what I hear, it was either difficult or asking for too much money is the story I've heard. I don't know if any of that's factual or not, but that's showbiz, so it wouldn't surprise me.
I love what he did with Roger, and I'm a fan.
Yeah, absolutely. Great stuff. So anyway, Sam, thank you so much for coming back on to talk more about and celebrate the anniversary of Disneyland. But why don't you let
I wish we were there right now.
Oh, tell me about it. Why don't you let folks know where they can find you, and especially on Twitter since you post so much crazy
I'm mostly on Twitter.
Nostalgia.
I'm at Cartar Sauce, always talking about something with Disney. Like I mentioned during this quarantine, I've been uploading all my old videotapes. So I've been every other day I have an old parade from either Disneyland or Disney World or even Tokyo Disneyland. So on YouTube, my channel is Cartar Sauce Theater. Look for me there. Or Instagram, Cartar Sauce. SamCarterArt.com is my website where I do a lot of theme park design, and take a look.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much, Sam.
My pleasure. I'll talk to you soon.
Now, folks, if you haven't listened to last week's episode of the podcast yet, be sure to check it out as Sam and I discuss the 10th and 25th Disneyland Anniversary TV specials. And don't forget that you can hear the latest Disney news in the House of Mouse headlines every Sunday. The easiest way to make sure you don't miss any of the magic is by subscribing to Disney Coast to Coast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Wherever you search, don't forget, it's Disney with a Z, Coast to Coast. And if you're looking for some DCTC bonuses, head on over to patreon.com/DisneyCTC. That's patreon.com/DIZNEYCTC. Other than that, folks, have a magical day. Bye!
Thanks for listening to Disney Coast to Coast. Have a magical day.
Disney Coast to Coast is produced and hosted by Jeff DePauli. Learn more about the podcast and become a supporter at DisneyCoastToCoast.com.